Every school is a good school.
To me, it's not real. How can every school be good? What is good? Who say it's good?
When people go to neighborhood schools, you don't necessarily expect them to do great things in that sense.
Hello and welcome to the second episode of Bridging the Void, where Singaporeans from all walks of life come together to discuss polarizing views openly and meaningfully. I'm Joey.
And I'm Harish, and today we are joined by four wonderful guests.
Hi, I'm Eddie. I'm a taxi driver and content creator.
Hi, I'm Keiki. I am a Senior Research Fellow at the Institute of Policy Studies in NUS.
I'm Nancy and I'm a content creator.
Hi, I'm Wei Jie. I'm a third-gen baker in my family business, and I used to be a teacher.
Awesome. So today we're going to be talking about something that affects us all, livelihoods.
But before we dive into it, let's begin with an icebreaker question. If every job paid the same amount of money, what would you do?
No job, bang. Got sleeping and research.
You sleep, then your life just goes by.
Okay, well, sleeping also very tiring, no?
I'll be a professional food taster, like they eat for a living.
Maybe something related to travel. Yeah, just run around the world.
I think I would want to be a stay-home dad. Whenever we want, I just bring my daughter travel the world. Yeah.
I'm also a dad, but I want to be a footballer. Make me sound like a horrible parent like that.
I would be a professional Disneyland reviewer. You know, like when there's new seasonal updates, new popcorn buckets, or like I want to be the Disneyland girl.
So today, the views expressed are solely based on our personal experiences, so please feel free to share your raw and honest thoughts. Okay, this is a safe space, and we're all just here to enlighten ourselves.
Okay, so this is how it's going to work today. We will spin the gachapon, and the capsule will contain a clue to the first topic of today. Shall we go for it? Nancy, would you like to?
Oh, me?
Ooh,
All right.
Do the honors. You're very hot today, so I think we'll get a good first pull.
Big money, big money.
Oh.
What would you call that?
Like a graduation cap?
What do you think that has to do with?
Education.
Yeah, it is something to do with education. Specifically, it is about a statement said by then Education Minister Heng Swee Keat in 2011 that every school is a good school. Have you all heard that phrase before? Definitely lah, right? This was kind of like an emphasis that one's success doesn't depend on the school they attend. So it became very popular, it became a well-known phrase, but it also sparked a lot of debate lah.
Maybe to break the ice a little bit, we want to go around the cultures to share what school you went to. Was it a neighborhood school? Was it a
SAP school.
SAP school, right?
IP.
What about like the ACRI?
That one's luxury school.
Hwa Chong. Yeah, really, I drive inside macam like chalet like that.
Well, I'm gonna go right off the bat. I went to a neighborhood school.
Same lah. But mine is famous school. Famous for soccer.
SAP school.
Oh.
I went to a neighborhood school.
Same, neighborhood school.
I went to a luxury school.
Oh.
Wow.
Say that with more gusto.
Even saying it, I feel like it's being
Say
judged.
it with a little like,
Being judged
I went
already.
to a luxury school.
No, but in fact, like the fact that we all have different reactions to the different categories means, I mean, it kind of points to what there's a sentiment like whether every school is the same lah.
I think right off the bat, it's like social background. Maybe not just your family, but you make different friends.
I think I wouldn't have expected someone from a luxury school to end up in this industry. So I think that's where my reaction came from. It's like, oh.
Not gonna lie, like going to that school, it did open doors. I didn't come from a privileged background, like very middle class HDB, But going there, it opened my eyes to a lot of things, gave me opportunities. But it reached a point where I was like, why don't I just try something else and see lah? Then slowly just stumbled into it, survived, but like when I look at my peers now, all very different stages of life.
Wei Jie, you had a bit of a reaction. As a former teacher, did that statement shock you a bit?
I think if I were to come from a luxury school, I'll probably get the same kind of reactions because of what I'm doing now.
For your going to neighborhood schools, do you think there's an unfair label or unfair judgment that people pass on it?
I think there definitely are stereotypes. That's why I guess that's where my question came from probably from a little bit of like a stereotype, like, oh, you went to a luxury school, but you somehow ended up in this industry. And I feel like when people go to neighborhood schools, you don't necessarily expect them to do great things in that sense. But there are many people who went to neighborhood schools who did great things.
And what about the experience of going to a SAP school? Like, how do people normally react when you say you went to a...
Oh, I always feel very embarrassed to say that I'm from a SAP school. I don't know why. It's just like when you say you're from a SAP school, people would be like, oh, then like take 3 steps back, or like start to say, oh, maybe you're a bit different from me or something like that. I wouldn't say it's a very similar experience. I think there is some advantages in being in that environment, especially in the language part, because there's quite a lot of emphasis on 2 languages in a SAP school. We do get quite a lot of opportunities, like from a luxury school as well.
I mean, I do agree that there is this kind of differences. I mean, for guys, we go to army, right? I think that's the first instance whereby everybody gets mixed together. For me, I entered a batch in army whereby there were people from the JC, the poly people, and also people from, whereby they just drop out of schools and enter army. When you go out there to work, I mean, of course, certain types of jobs you will be dealing with a majority of people coming from, let's say, SAP schools or what. But I would say majority of the jobs out there requires you to deal with people coming from different educational backgrounds.
So then, what do you all think about the statement, every school is a good school?
To me, it's not real. How can every school be good? What is good? Who say it's good?
What is the benchmark of good, right?
So to me, the idea of school is not only education, it's also building character. As a dad, for my 2 young kids, that is more important than their knowledge. For me, it's always character comes first than knowledge.
So then, the idea of what is a good school, you think that's set by what? Society, the leaders?
Who set the benchmark?
Actually, I somewhat agree that, this statement can be superficial. I think the problem lies with the lack of context being given. I was part of the batch that signed on as a teacher in 2011, and back then Mr. Heng was the Minister of Education, and he was our guest of honor for what we call the campus ceremony, whereby teachers will hold a campus and make the teacher's oath. When this statement was made during the session, I can see some teachers to be around me also, showing the signs whereby they are just thinking, what does this statement really mean?
I feel like every school is a good school, mainly because growing up in Singapore, the resources and the access to resources that you guys have is very evident, especially through schools. So, for example, like financial assistance, when you see a counselor, like you get access to that as well, like in school. And I don't think these are resources or like opportunities that people would necessarily really have in other countries. Especially maybe for myself, coming from an African who grew up in Singapore, and I always hear my parents say like, you don't know how good you have it here. Which is true, because all I know is Singapore. So all I know is what I have here. But compared to what my parents went through, like in terms of education back in Africa and what their counterparts went through, even in a sense like the worst school in Singapore is already damn good.
So there are students who come from complicated backgrounds with their family, and as a result, they might take longer to come to school. Or maybe because of things going on at home, they can't stay awake in class. And these, I would say, are more common in neighborhood schools. Maybe more behavioral issues. Like coming from someone who went to a neighborhood school, I called the police in my school like 4 times because of people's lives being in danger. So I do feel like there is potential because all the teachers are trained by MOE, right? That's what this statement was meant to say, that every school is a good school because you have access to the same textbooks, you have access to the same resources, the same teachers from the same institution, but the students are where the variant comes in.
For me, I think the statement, it is almost given that yes, every school in Singapore needs to be a good school, but the problem for me is like it sets the lower limit, but it doesn't address the fact that the upper limit is a big variable. And coming from a luxury school, right? So, I mean, the primary school I came to was not a brand name school. And there was almost, I think the biggest thing that came from me from the luxury school, like what Joey said, I don't remember what I learned, honestly. But it was the people I interacted with, and just that my eyes were open. Because when I got a chance to go to the school, my first thought from my parents also were like, don't go to the school, it's so far. And I was like, okay lor. But then when I went there, I realized that, oh wait, there are there are people who come from very different backgrounds, who do things very differently, and it almost built up my own self-confidence. For you, Kiki, and like, do you have any research that shows any differences further on in life?
If you are looking at academic research, there is people who have better resources at the start of their lives tend to be able to maybe adapt better at when they meet different obstacles along the way. It's not to say that people with no resources or fewer resources cannot, but they have a harder time. So I think that one is something we also have to really face and look in the eye when we talk about every school being a good school. When you meet maybe different hardships in life, for example, you maybe need more money, or you need a job, or you want to try and ace an interview, all these people maybe can give you more tips or some help, because they also have all these experiences, compared to if you don't have all these people who already know all these things, then it's harder for you to really get a step in or get a foot up. So there is some difference. I mean, of course, people can learn on their own, but if you have people who are already in the circle and can teach you stuff, then it's much easier for your journey to improve or to get out of hardship.
If we are talking about quality of education, the focus in preparing different types of students in different schools for the society, I think we are doing it. However, based on different resources, students do get exposed to different situations and things like that. These are value added. So I think that is where students coming from neighborhood schools and more privileged schools will experience that kind of difference.
And I mean, one thing you brought up that is very important is the external factors that go into a child's education. And one big thing is tuition. Because I think over the past 10 years, the amount of money spent on tuition has increased every year. So 2023 was 1.8 billion compared to 820 million in 2008.
I should be a tuition teacher. Change trade from taxi driver to tuition.
I was in primary school, secondary school, like in the 90s, early 2000s. Back then, I remember my friends who had tuition, it wasn't the most common thing. But now it feels like if you don't have tuition, then you stand out.
Yes.
And that means that the school can teach however it teaches in a good way, provide all the resources, but what happens outside ultimately causes a lot of problems also. It's an important discussion because Singapore system, it prides itself on meritocracy, which is what we have all heard. It seems like this idealistic state is being challenged by inequalities. So rather than doubling on our competitive streak, maybe it really is time to broaden the definitions of success and create opportunities for people to thrive, not just academically, but in whatever shape or form they would like to. Okay, so it's time for the next capsule. Oh.
Keys.
Any guesses?
Car key.
Car key.
Your car like this.
House key. Yeah.
House keys. So, in September 2025, a record 172 HDB resale flats were sold for over $1 million, the highest ever in Singapore's history. Locations are Central, Toa Payoh, Bukit Merah, Kallang Whampoa, and Queenstown. Pricing in the housing market continues to climb, and affordability is becoming a growing concern among Singaporeans. I think we can all agree.
Yeah, agree that it's a concern.
Anyone homeowners, anyone renters, waiting for BTO?
Waiting for BTO.
Okay. How are you in the process?
So we really got the unit, paid the first half of the deposit. Now it's the building period, and then in 2 years' time, then we'll collect our keys.
And the rest? I'm a homeowner.
Yeah.
I don't know whether to call myself homeowner because my flat is only less than 8 years left. Comparing with peers overseas, I mean, in Singapore, when we say we buy a house, as long as it's not freehold or even 999, you don't own the house forever.
Freehold HDB.
You are renting
Wouldn't
it
that
for
be
99
nice?
years to be
You're a renter.
What about KK?
Homeowner, yeah.
Homeowner.
Very depressing, right? Yeah.
That's the reality. That's the reality.
You want to hear something even more depressing?
Yeah.
I'm a renter.
That's quite rare, right, among Singaporeans.
I think so.
Actually, now it's getting more common. But I mean, this whole housing thing, has it become more concerning for you all, even for the homeowners, for the BTO person? How has that affected your own choices in life?
I think I was lucky because I got my resale flat before COVID. Back then, prices are not as inflated. So actually just recently I was talking to my friend who is a property agent, right? He said, good, right? Property price go up, then your valuation for the house also go up. But I say, if I sell this house, what am I going to buy?
Yeah.
Because the next house that I'm going to buy is also inflated. And paying interest and things like that, I might have to even top up for renovation and things like that. My mentality is that I'm just going to stay in this house all the way.
But then what about the there is, like, for any expensive good, if it's expensive, you don't buy it lah, or you find other ways to access it, right? In Singapore, home ownership is still one of the highest in the world. Does that make you think about maybe it's really the reality that these housing prices will continue to escalate and we all just need to deal with it?
I feel like it's that though, because I had a friend who she used to stay in like a mansionette, so like a huge house, and she said that she only bought her house for 200 something K. I was like, huh? Where to find this kind of price now?
How many years ago was it?
That was like 20 years ago. So I was like, bruh. And then I'm paying more than double, 2.5 or 3 times more for a smaller flat. It also comes down to like, how are we all gonna afford these houses? It's only gonna get harder lah. Affording it and also getting it, because I also know of people who took many chances in order to even get a home. I mean, for some people, they are fortunate to get it on their first try. I have friends who tried 10 times, 11 times.
Oh, you're talking about balloting?
Yes, yeah.
Oh, now I remember
until
about this.
they,
11
Yeah.
times?
$110. I think one ballot is $10, right?
But anyone else went through that balloting
Yeah,
BTO
yeah.
process you went through?
So about 5 times, I think. We wanted certain level according to our feng shui. So even we got it, we don't get that, space. Then we give up. Then we try again. So partly our fault also lah. I think 5th, 6th try we got what we wanted.
And that took how long?
About 1.5 years, I think, from the whole balloting process.
But then would you all say that housing is accessible?
If you're talking about people being able to buy flats, I think it's still possible. But I think the most accessible, it would be most accessible to, I think, couples who are married. So other kinds of family formations may have other impact. So I do know of a friend who actually was trying to buy a house with the parent, single with the parent, and this was they went into some semantics about what is a family unit, and there were some obstacles to getting a flat eventually. So I think there are also things like this, and I think for the singles, the age limit is 35 and above. So that is also another group that sometimes don't see public housing as accessible as the married couples who can get it much younger.
You hear all these things, like what you say, getting a flat sometimes is not the hardest. It depends on what combination of floor, location. So do you think it's also an issue with Singaporeans being too picky?
I'll say it, yes.
Yeah,
I think it's a need and want thing. If you need a house, I think in Singapore it's quite accessible. Everybody should be able to get comfortable roof over your head. But I think the issue is getting the house that you want, your dream house. I think that is the challenging part.
You're so right on the need and want, because I feel like fundamentally, if you truly need a roof over your head and you're struggling financially, we do have government rental flats that you pay $50 a month for rental as long as you have a specific amount of income, and that is you're talking about like 4 to 7 people in one room flat, but that is still a roof over their heads where the kids can sleep and go to school from. Beyond that, I think once you are able to maybe you struggle a bit more if you exceed that cap, then you don't fit in that qualification for a rental flat, but you can't necessarily afford a resale, or you can't afford to wait for a BTO either, because rental is so expensive. And speaking from experience, the rental market is quite frightening.
So you think it's not wrong for people to want a certain type of house, or you think it's too entitled already?
I think the problem is people nowadays see ownership become an investment rather than, but when you see property as an investment, I think it's a very difficult thing. Because once you live in it, it's actually a liability. It's not generating income. Right? But people have this conception, prime estate, can sell it, I can flip it.
But is it people themselves or the way the housing system is structured? Because I mean, I think it was in the 80s or 90s that the approach to housing as a appreciation asset was actually kind of led by the government. Like, you know, Nancy, when you decided to apply for BTO, what was your consideration? Was there like, okay, maybe rent, maybe save up for something that you really want, or what was your thought process?
Just getting a house, honestly, yeah. I feel like for most of the people my age, I feel like our first concern is just to get a roof over our heads. Because a lot of us is like, it's a waiting game, first of all. You're waiting already so long, and then you have to like time your wedding just nice, and then you move in, and then it's like, by the time you get your house, you want to just like chill. You don't want to think so much about flipping it or like, oh, where am I going to live next? The home that we managed to get, because we were like last few ballot numbers, so we didn't get a very good floor. So like a low level floor. So to my partner, it's like, let's just sell it after the MOP is over and then move to somewhere else better. But like, to me, it's like, okay, what? Like, this floor, okay, what? Why need to, you know, why need to think so much?
That's the Singaporean dream. Because I think as you get older, you will see some friends who play the game and they do it.
Yeah. I have many friends who have done it.
Yeah,
they
they
flip
do it.
up to landed already.
But going back to Nancy, did you guys take advantage of any of the grants that were available to you?
We weren't necessarily able to because I am not a Singaporean, so I'm a PR, so I already have to pay $10,000 more. I believe we tried 4 or 5 times, and the first 4 times we weren't able to get the home because we applied it under Chinese, because my partner's Chinese. And then the last one we were like, you know what, let's just try others, because I'm a others, yeah, you know, I'm a classified under others, right? So when we did others, then we got it. Because there's racial quotas in every block to hit. So I do think that it's also because of these that, you know, it makes it harder for people to get homes if you're of a certain race and stuff.
But I do feel that the Singaporean dream is over for the newer generation though. If you're in the older generation, you bought it low, right now you must be damn happy. But I feel that it is going to be a concern. Like me and my wife, we were talking about it. Why we were talking about the 99 years and things like that, because what happens to our daughter next time? You know, in overseas, parents, I mean, if you have kids, parents can leave properties as one of the, you know, something that you pass for your daughters, your sons, because it's going to be forever.
KK, what about you when you hear announcements about, you know, like what Joey said, the future and what it holds?
Oh, I have a lot of mixed feelings. So number one, I think for people who used to feel like, you know, you're priced out of the system, or your current status in life don't allow you to get a BTO flat, then maybe for them it feels more inclusive. But then there's also this aspect about, you know, what about the amount of flats that are available? And I think rising prices is a given, because I mean, we also have rising cost of living all over, and actually typically people would have higher salaries, you know, to account for inflation and all. So I think it will go up in tandem. The problem is, I think now the cost of housing relative to your income has increased much more compared to last time. So that's why people are feeling a pinch, and this idea about home ownership is very important. It's a very Singaporean mentality, and I don't know whether we can still sustain that, because a lot more young people, they do see it as a target for their own personal life goals. But then, you know, what the older generation is telling them is from their own experience, where they actually benefited from this whole home ownership and not earning, but, you know, getting a profit from their home sales. But it may not be true for the younger generation anymore.
Wow, that was another heavy conversation. I think we can agree that land scarcity is nothing new to Singapore, but as rising prices hit some groups of people harder than others, the pathway to finding our ideal home isn't so straightforward, as there are many trade-offs. But I think we can all agree the real appreciation is in our hearts. This is your Okay, shall we spin the next capsule?
Oh, there are 2 things. A drink and a dessert thing, and a house.
So it is essentially home-based businesses. I guess that example is about food home-based businesses, which is a trend that's causing quite a bit of debate in Singapore, especially the food scene, which is home-based F&B businesses, because many brick and mortar restaurant owners feel that these setups, that especially the ones that operate at scale, are rivaling full-fledged eateries, yet they're not subject to the same licensing, rent, or regulatory burdens. What we're going to be discussing is what does this mean for the future of the F&B industry, and in some way the future of home-based businesses as well. Any of you have been part of a home-based business or interacted with home-based businesses before?
I've not been part, but I've bought from home-based businesses. So now there's a lot of matcha stores that are operating out of homes. So I think that's really, really exciting. I feel like it gives a lot of character to because I love home-cooked food. And sometimes there's only so much home-cooked food you can have from your own home, right? But I love to know what other people can offer and what other people can make. Respectfully, most of the F&B out there is like chain outlets. So are you really suffering?
Yeah, I used to sell those nuggets, prepare it, the marshmallow, melt it, do all those flavor, pack nicely, buy a nice packaging, sell on teacher day and all this at home for extra income.
But how was that? Like, do you still do it? No?
No, I don't do it. Too much work already. Because the ordering, the inventories, then a lot of things.
Which what Nancy said about the F&B outlets and the threats that home-based businesses face. I mean, you run an F&B outlet now. What's your take on home-based F&B businesses?
Even before I enter the F&B industry, when I was in teaching, I've always been buying from home-based bakers because I have a sweet tooth. So since young, I've been eating all these things, and even now when I'm doing this bakery business, not that I'm trying out, I don't see myself trying out my competitors' products, but I think it's something worth supporting. Like what was mentioned, it really just adds on a different dimension, something new, rather than the typical same type of products you see in shops and things like that. But coming from the F&B point of view, if you do just look at the surface, if you are renting a shop and things like that, and you just compare it on the surface, it may feel a little bit unfair because they are not subjected to the same licenses, checks, rentals, and things like that. I think all this nitty-picky stuff is just part of it. So, I personally don't think it's right that, just because you are paying rental and you have a little bit more overhead and things like that, and then we try to say that, it's not fair. Home-based businesses should also do the same thing. They should be subjected to the same laws and things like that. So, but then again, I think there are, with every system, there are people who try to, find the loopholes and things like that.
Yeah, adding on to Wei Jie's point, there are a bunch of family home-based restaurants now where they used to have a store, and because rental prices went up, they decided to open up their house to customers, and now there's lines in the lift lobbies. People go to their house and eat, and they operate just like a restaurant. It's just like in a housing unit, right? And that, I feel, is a bit different from a home-based business where maybe you make small batches and you only ship them out weekly or monthly. It's very hard to build regulations on this because how do you quantify what is a lot? Maybe you bake a lot but no one comes to your house. Does that mean it's okay? Are you suggesting that we put a monetary cap? It's also very difficult, right? If you are selling smaller, cheaper items, then it's harder to hit that cap also.
I mean, there are actually kind of like conditions for home-based businesses. Like the example you gave, by right, apparently they are not supposed to introduce extra traffic to the area. So in some way, you can argue that home-based business specifically was violating the rules. But when it comes to enforcement, I'm not sure who would enforce it. And even when we talk about home-based businesses, right, there's such a variety of different homes. I think some of the examples you gave about them functioning as full-fledged restaurants, I think in some the articles mentioned that there was a shop house that caters to 60 people a night. So then, to me, I fully support like home-based businesses because I think it adds a lot of vibrancy. But when it comes to that, right, it feels like, that is not everyone's home, and you definitely do get some benefits. Because right now, you run your business out of a hawker stall, right? But you compare to people in a huge property, they already have a space that's bigger than your space. But they are not subject to the same regulations.
And adding to that, if I'm the neighbor, I also very stressed. Like, I don't know who this stranger, because okay, before this, you know your neighbor. You know, go out and leave, you know, who is it? Right? But if you have a daughter, son, they play outside, then got strangers coming in from all walks of life. Don't know they are from this estate or from elsewhere. Even you say, okay, the quota is lower footfall, still you are introducing unfamiliar faces in the estate.
I think interestingly, I mean, home-based businesses, there are a lot of different type of home-based businesses. Some do food, there are a lot of other things like handcrafts and things like that. But the debate, the issue always seems to surround F&B. So actually, rather than just talking about home-based food businesses, I think a lot of this debate comes from people who are operating full-time F&B because they are facing different types of stress, be it rental, be it licensing, be it handling customers and things like that. So, I mean, this home-based food business thing has been ongoing for many years. I believe personally is because of COVID. During COVID, these things start to surface even more. And together with social media, they are more evident right now.
I mean, you know, one thing we have spoken about is like people's passions, people's desires, but there's probably a group of people who also did it because they need the additional income or because maybe they have been restricted to being at home because of a certain disability or something. Yeah. Have you all come across any business like that?
There's a lady that does tarts. She is on kidney dialysis. She stays in the Hougang area, and we order from her quite often. We see stories like this sometimes on social media, and yeah, it does makes you want to help and things like that. And the truth is, her food is good. If we really were to clamp down on such things, then what are these people going to do?
I feel like money is not finite. So if a home-based business thrives, it doesn't mean that now a brick and mortar is going to lose out and close up. Maybe the difference would be, you know, people feel it's unfair because now they're subject to these things that have monetary costs, and a home-based business can thrive on lesser overheads. That might be what is maybe causing some friction, right? That I have to uphold so many different standards, and then you can just operate and register, maybe take a simple course, and that's all you need to do. And then it feels unfair. But then I think if we zoom out, right, on one hand, a F&B, this is their entire source of income. For a home-based business, it could be supplementary.
So then, bearing everything that we've discussed in mind, do you all think it should be something that's promoted or discouraged or supported?
As consumer, I support lah. Then if let's say now I walk into a hawker, every day I see the same franchise store. Sian I go there 5 times already, sian already. I say, hey, TikTok, what this new thing? So if let's say they have these to spice up the whole F&B scene, why not? As consumer, I got more choice, more experience, more things to talk about.
The surge of home-based businesses is a good thing because I feel like it allows people to try out their passions. Because a lot of people, I do think that F&B is not like a super encouraged kind of like job line. Like if someone says they want to start their own shop, everybody's going to think, are you crazy? Like so much money and like cost involved, right? So I guess starting it from like a home-based perspective is like a way to kind of dip your toes into this industry potentially as a job.
Adding on to that, coming from someone who is working in F&B, I do feel that the cake is actually large enough. I mean, if we all agree that food is one of the favorite things of Singaporeans, then I don't think this thing will die off anytime soon.
I mean, it's quite heartening to hear from you guys about how you all feel the cake is big enough, because I mean, one thing we hear as Singaporeans is always Singapore's a very small market, there's a lot of scarcity, and it's every man for himself. But you all are in your industries feel that regardless of industry, the cake is big enough. Thanks a lot for sharing. I think it's an important discussion because societal changes and consumer patterns have led to new ways of running businesses, new job opportunities, and it's not a new concept because home-based businesses have been going around, like you said, for a long time. Of course, there was an explosion during COVID, but feels like there will be some time needed for adjustments and to adapt. But like what you all said also, competition always leads to more options for the consumer as well as the business owners. So yeah, heartening to know that you all feel the cake is still big enough for everyone.
Okay, and before we wrap up, we've got a little activity. We'd like for you to take a moment to reflect on what we talked about today. Maybe write down your thoughts based on this sentence. What are your reflections on livelihood after today's talk?
I think as long as we are open to new ideas and have honest discussion, I think we all can make this space, here to be what we want to be lah.
Eddie, where are you running? Because I will vote for you. No. You move to my estate first.
For me, it's everyone can find their own ways to success while earning a living at the same time because the cake is big enough.
Aww.
I wrote, you can have your cake and eat it too. And that perspective is important for growth, and we cannot live in a bubble world. Hearing everyone's opinions and thoughts today was very, very eye-opening for me.
I wrote that change is the only constant. The important thing is to keep an open mindset and adapt.
Thank you so much to our guests for joining us, and to everyone watching, we'll see you on the next episode. Bye bye.